Hey, comic lovers, EMoney the old man back with you again. So, for those of you who have been wondering, if everything goes according to plan, then Thor should be back with us next week. So, we've been missing Thor. I'll bet you Thor has been missing us.
Oh yeah,
So,
he's probably hungry by now.
So, hopefully he'll be back here next week. All right, so today we are continuing our series on the history of comic books, and we're jumping into the Silver Age.
My age.
Now, this age has a lot of details to it, a lot of information, so we had to break it up into two parts.
We didn't have to. We wanted to.
But that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we did.
All right, so before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. Also, be sure to check out all the cool content we have going on the channel. We have back issues with E-Money and the Old Man. Also, we have our comic reviews show for Wednesday comic books. We review a lot of those every week.
A handful of those.
Some of them. We also have our Boxed Heroes unboxing every month. A lot of cool comic books come from that mystery box. Also, don't forget to check out our reaction videos. Right now, we're in the middle of WandaVision, and it's a pretty cool show. So check out WandaVision first of all, and then come to our channel and see our reaction videos, and we can share that together.
I mean, I get it if you don't want to watch the reaction video, but if you're not watching WandaVision, you're making a mistake. It's a good show.
Yeah, and things are getting interesting in Westview, so get caught up and check that out. All right, so grab your lanterns, kids, and recite the oath. This is Back Issues. All right, so part one of the Silver Age. So this covers the time from 1956 to 1969 in comic books. So how did the Silver Age get started, old man?
Well, just like I explained with the Golden Age, there was a point that somebody said something that people seemed to jump on board with it. Same thing with the Silver Age. There was a letter column in Justice League of America number 42 in 1966, and a fan named Scott Taylor from Connecticut wrote, "If you guys keep bringing back the heroes from the Golden Age, people 20 years from now will be calling this decade the Silver 60s. So dealers and fans caught on to that, and somebody came in looking for a comic book. He would say, well, I'm looking for a Golden Age or a Silver Age book. So it started to become a common term. So what was then known as the Second Heroic Age or the Modern Age became the Silver Age.
All right.
Now, when did it actually start? There's really two major theories on that. Some people want to give credit to when the Martian Manhunter showed up, John Jones. He was in a backup story in Detective number 225. He was a police detective. And that was in about a year before the infamous, or no, not infamous, the famous Showcase number 4. Now, if this was going to be a superhero, that was the first one since the Golden Age. But John Jones was actually a detective first. He used his superpowers, his Martian abilities, to solve crimes. So everybody felt, and me included, feels like his stories are more of a mishmash in the old atomic age science fiction stories and crime stories. Not exactly a superhero story. So I'm going to go with what most comic book historians go with, and that was The Flash was the starting point.
Okay.
This guy. So keep in mind, only 3 superheroes retained their own title from the Golden Age to the Silver Age, and these 3 guys, the guys and girl, three heroes. Okay. Aquaman and Green Arrow didn't have their own title, but they were in backup stories in adventure comics. Green Arrow, the older version of Green Arrow was okay. I don't know who read Aquaman. I didn't like it. I mean, You got Aquaman, Aqualad riding around on their giant seahorses, and Mara's doing craziness with her water power. I just didn't like it. To be honest, the only Aquaman I ever liked, Jason Momoa's version. Thank you, Jason. So, at any rate, by the time it's 1956 and the Flash shows up, fans are hungry for a new hero.
Mm-hmm.
They got him.
All right.
So, the showcase title was actually launched in 1956 with issue 1, had different stories about firefighters, including the first appearance of, might have been the last appearance, I don't know, Fireman Fred.
All right.
Any rate. Second issue was all about all kinds of animals. Some of them were more westerns. You know, there's one with a Indian brave and eagle and a cougar or something. I haven't read it. And the third issue was all about frogmen, Navy frogmen. So they didn't really have a direction, and then bam. Number 4, Showcase 1956, we introduced the Flash, or Barry Allen, to the world. Now, who created the Flash? We had a whole thing on who created Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we kind of figured it out.
All right.
I don't think we're going to figure this one out, because I read all kinds of stuff, and mostly interviews with the people that were around back in that time. So the only thing I'm really sure of is that Showcase number 4 was written by Robert Kanigher. Carmen Infantino penciled it. Joe Kubert inked it. Now, their editor, Julie Schwartz, Julie was a guy, by the way. Julie Schwartz, did he have anything to do with creating the Flash? Probably.
Oh, okay.
There's a good chance he did. But I don't think we're ever going to know who to give creative credit to the Barry Allen version of the Flash. But thus started the Silver Age of comics.
All right.
Now, Showcase did a few trial runs with Flash. I think they did like 3 or 4 issues. Then they started him in his own comic, his own Flash comic, in issue number 105 in 1959. You say 105? Well, it was a continuation of the Golden Age Flash comics, which was last published with number 104 in 1949, a decade ago.
So they jumped from 104 104 to 105, 10 years apart.
Yeah. Now, I talked about this before. The comic industry really hadn't caught on to collectors. I mean, that's why comics up till now, all the stories were standalone stories. If you read them out of order, didn't matter. If you read 1 issue, skipped 7 issues, it didn't matter. It was kind of like TV was back then. It was self-contained stories. There was no continuity changes. So they didn't care that they didn't do a number 1 issue. Nowadays, publishers would jump all, well, we're going to do number 1 with that. That's
sure.
Oh, yeah, that's number 1. Because people buy more number 1s than they do number 105s.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it. I mean, there was a time in my comic book collecting where I pretty much only bought first issues.
No.
So at any rate, all right, so continuing with Showcase, in early 1957, Showcase number 6 featured the Challengers of the Unknown. Should be a vibrato, unknown. But at any rate, these were guys created by Joe Simon and Jack the King Kirby. Now, let's take a look at this team.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if you see it resembling another team. The leader is a scientist genius type named Professor Halley. I think they just called him Prof, which I've never get as Prof, I guess. At any rate, there was a good-looking, blonde-haired flyboy, Ace Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I bet you're already there. Strong and loyal, Rocky Davis. He was solid. Okay, and then stuntman Red Ryan. Now, do these guys remind you of another Jack Kirby creation? Don't say
I
it.
won't say it. Yeah, that sounds.
I bet y'all know anyway. All right, so just to keep going with Showcase, in mid-1957, they experimented with one of the early, I won't say early female characters, because there was other female characters out there, Patsy Walker, stuff like that, but the first superhero-oriented female character, not a female superhero. And that was Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, an issue of Showcase number 9. And pretty soon she had her own title, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen followed right behind her. I don't think he started in Showcase. I'm not sure where he started at. All right, so to wrap up talking about early issues of Showcase, let's go to 1959, issue 22. And we get the first appearance and origin of the Silver Age Green Lantern. Now, Hal Jordan's Green Lantern, first off, that's my Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
He's always going to be my Green Lantern. You can say what you want to about the 50,000 other lanterns. I don't care. Hal Jordan's it. Okay? And I don't care how bad the movie was. It's a great character.
Okay.
I got a vent every episode. That was my minor vent. All right, so now DC got into the superhero business, or superhero team business, with Brave and the Bold number 28 in 1960. Now, this was a revamp of the old Justice Society team. It's the first appearance of the Justice League of America. And you had Green Lantern, Aquaman, The Flash, Wonder Woman, and the Martian Manhunter. Batman and Robin, I think, had cameo appearances. I can't pop this open because it's a polybag version and we don't want to do that. But at any rate, I think they just had cameo appearances as Bruce and Clark. Now, they soon joined the team, as I think the next new member after that was the Green Arrow after a couple of issues, and then they just started joining up right after that. They ran the Justice League just like they did the Flash in a few issues of Brave and the Bold, and then they gave them their own title, Justice League of America, in mid-1960. Batman and Superman, like I said, they didn't show up on a cover until issue 10, so 13 issues later, they actually did a cover appearance, which, strange, but I guess they wanted to focus on some of these new guys. All right, one thing I need to point out is that a lot of the stuff in the Atomic Age carried over into the Silver Age, like the origin of a lot of these guys. It was all science fiction origins, like the Flash, lightning bolt hit chemicals and splashed all over him. Green Lantern meets an alien and he gives him his power ring.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, if they hadn't evolved into superhero stories eventually, you could just chalk it up to another, sci-fi story.
In fact, a lot of these stories fit in perfectly with the old Kirby science fiction stories that he was drawing way back.
Right. A Martian who solves crimes. Does that sound like a superhero story?
No.
Sounds
like I said before, that's a sci-fi crime story.
Yeah, that sounds like a 1950s sci-fi story.
That's exactly what it was. Then you had Ray Palmer, who becomes the Atom, and he built a suit out of material that he salvaged from a dwarf star meteorite. Science fiction from the get-go. Let's face it. All right, so let's leave DC and go over to really the only other game in town back then. Dell was still doing stuff, but to me that doesn't really suit my idea of the Silver Age, because I'm a superhero guy. I'm not really a superhero guy. You knew that, but that's what I read. So meanwhile, Atlas Comics, which was formerly Timely Comics, they're a total cluster. They are a mess. The late 40s, as we talked about in the last issue of Back Issues, the last episode of Back Issues, superhero comics were dying. They were on their way out. Timely had pretty much switched over to horror, suspense, crime, but they weren't selling well. And then there was the pressure from the parents, previous to the seduction of the innocent in the Comics Code, but there was still pressure from the parents and the media to keep them from doing anything sensational or gruesome or over the top. So it was all pretty tame. And then in 51, Martin Goodman, the publisher of Timely, desperate to save money, ceased doing business with Timely's current distributor and started using the company that Goodman already owned, the Atlas News Company. Now keep in mind, Goodman's primary income was not comic books, it was adult magazines, and I'm not sure if that means what it means now, or if you would call like Newsweek an adult magazine. I don't know. And paperbacks. He did a lot in the book business. So he went and just started sending everything out through the Atlas News Company. And let's face it, it's a natural move that he changed his comic book line to Atlas Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Now during the 50s, Atlas did pretty good. They had westerns, romance, horror, crime, funny animals, war, teen humor stories. And Goodman even tried to bring back his superhero guys, Captain America, Human Torch, and Submariner, in a comic called Young Men at issue number 24. And that ran for 5 issues, and after that, those versions of those characters just joined the previous versions right into oblivion.
Oh.
Keep in mind, that wasn't even the Steve Rogers Captain America. That was a different dude completely.
Oh.
That comes up much later in the Captain America story. In 56, a lot of small publishers closed their doors, and Goodman closed his Atlas News Company, shut it down. He started doing business with American News Company. That was the largest distributor and damn near a monopoly. It's not smart to be a monopoly, Diamond Comics. You guys. So, the American News Company, the big boys, lost a lawsuit that was brought about by the Justice Department for restraint of trade. Don't be a monopoly. And they closed their doors in 1957 because they couldn't handle all the loss of income due to the suits. So Goodman, Atlas Comics, man, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He got rid of his distribution company. There's no other big distribution companies except one. There was one big boy left. Independent News. This distributor was owned by National Periodical, who National Periodical soon became
DC Comics.
Exactly. So he had to get in bed with his, not only his biggest competition, but his much bigger competitor. Now his contract with Independent News, since let's face it, they owned him now. I mean, they know he's got nowhere else to go. He was only allowed to distribute 8 to 12 titles per month. 8 to 12. Before that, he was putting out around, probably average 50 comics a month. Now he's got to drop that way down. So what do you think he had to do?
Make some cutbacks.
He did. He laid off most of his creative team. And Stan Lee, who had been his editor for quite a while, Stan Lee was Goodman's cousin or something.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah. He's been quoted as saying that Goodman was thinking about getting out of the comic book business completely. It was only a small part of his total income, and it was becoming a headache. And in all honesty, Stan himself wasn't happy with the comic book business because he felt like he had lowered himself to working for what was considered a lower art form.
Mm-hmm. And he was an editor during World War II, I believe. And so he was probably considering going into the regular news business at this time.
I'm not sure where his path would have taken him. I just know that I'm very grateful that he stuck around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had a lot of things to say about Stan Lee in the past, but you got to give the devil his due. Comic books would not be what they are today if it hadn't been for Stan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's several versions of what turned things around. Now, I didn't find any definitive answers. I mean, I read a lot of stuff that Stan said back in the day. I read a lot of people that this guy's brother's cousin's barber said that they overheard Goodman saying, but nothing directly from Goodman. But here's this old man's personal opinion, and I'm going to stick with it because I like it.
Okay.
My opinion is the door opened and in walked Jack the King Kirby.
Mm.
Now, Jack had been gone from Tommy and Atlas since he and Joe Simon split up. Now, there wasn't an angry, screw you, screw you, screw you. They amicably went their own separate ways. They just decided to work on different projects. So it wasn't like there was anything bad going on with those two.
Okay.
But Jack started working for Atlas. And the earliest thing I could find is Strange Worlds #1, which came out in late '58. He did one story in that comic. I would love to read that, but I've not found a digital copy that I can pop open and take a look at. And I'm sure not going to buy it, if I could ever find it, which is doubtful. He also worked on Strange Tales, starting with number 68, Amazing Adventures #1, featuring Dr. Not Doom.
Not Doom.
Dr. Droom.
Droom. Okay.
And he evidently, that character was kind of a superhero. And starting with issue 15, he started working on World of Fantasy. Now, and I've told you my feelings about Jack Kirby before. He's one of my favorite all-time creators. But he was a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when some of the guys from Image left Marvel or wherever they were working and started their own thing, and they couldn't make one comic book come out a month, I found that to be laughable. Kirby's art was simpler than Tom McFarlane's, no doubt. But Kirby was getting out twice the comics in a month, or stories in a month, that any other artist was. And by today's standards, he was probably doing 4 or 5 times what these guys were doing. Now, I don't know if it's the procedure or just his work ethic, but Jack the King Kirby was a beast. And he cranked it out. And to me, it was good stuff. So then, let's look at another situation. It was already going on. Steve Ditko already was working for Atlas. I think his first story was There'll Be Some Changes Made in Journey to Mystery number 33 that came out in 1956. But he started getting work on the same monster and science fiction books that Kirby was working on. And let's face it, in your bullpen, you have Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko. How could things not start to happen?
Right.
And baby, they did. In fact, if you got that bullpen, you're about to make some fantastic, amazing history. Well, we'll talk about that in next week's back issues.
All right, so we'll pick up the Silver Age again next week. Now let's wrap this up, flip it over to Stump the Old Man.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say we're going to the garage. No need to
Next
go to
week.
the garage. We'll see.
Hopefully. All right, so this week I was able to put together a Silver Age DC-themed Stump the Old Man segment.
Fitting.
All right, so best 2 out of 3, let's go.
Let's go.
Number 1, you were just talking about Jack the King Kirby. But before Kirby changed his profession, what did Oliver Queen do for a living?
So you're going to say he was something before he was a millionaire philanthropist. I'll go with circus performer.
That is incorrect.
Oh, that was Hawkeye. Damn it.
Oliver Queen was a museum curator / archaeologist.
I have no memories of that whatsoever.
Well, during the Golden Age, Oliver was a famous archaeologist specializing in Native American culture. And Kirby decided he didn't like that, so he turned him into a millionaire playboy.
So then DC had 2 of those.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder who had more money, Bruce or Oliver?
I would guess Bruce, but I don't know if they ever gave us any hard numbers.
No, they didn't.
All right, so 0 for 1. Number 2, who was on the receiving end of the mightiest punch of all time in Flash number 153?
Well, I'm going to guess it was one of Flash's guys in his rogues gallery.
Safe bet.
So, well, good. You just gave me a hint. That means it wasn't Superman, because that wasn't something I was considering, because he could probably take it. Gorilla Grodd would be a possibility. He could take a decent punch. And I don't remember Flash killing anybody. So I'm going to go with the Reverse Flash.
Oh, yes, he did get... Thought you were going to go with Grodd, but no, it was Reverse Flash. On the cover, you see Flash literally punches him into the future.
Ouch.
Yeah. All right, so 1 for 2. All right, so number 3, sort of another Flash question. What villain stepped out of the pages of the Flash on the cover of Detective number 353 to battle the dynamic duo?
Well, once again, it's got to come from the Rogues Gallery since he stepped out of the pages of the Flash. You wouldn't give me 2 that had the same answer, so I could rule out the Reverse Flash or Dr. Was it Professor Zoom or Dr. Zoom?
Professor Zoom.
Professor Zoom, so I can rule him out. Gorilla Grodd doesn't feel right. I would like for to have read a story where it's Captain Boomerang, except that story would last long enough for bats to grab him and punch him. So I'm going to say Mirror Master.
Incorrect.
Ooh.
The correct answer was the Weather Wizard.
For shame, another loss.
You see on the cover, he literally jumps out of the Flash and into Detective Comics to fight Batman and Robin. All right, so 1 for 3. The old man gets stumped this week.
Damn it.
All right, that about wraps things up for this week. So remember, part 2 of the Silver Age we're going to be covering next week. It'll be part 5 of our history of comic books.
Sounds good.
All right, so tune back in for that. And also, the return of Thor, hopefully, next week.
And, you know, some of y'all are slacking. We still need suggestions on what you'd like to see us do. We have a very short list of what we can do for episodes of back issues. Mm-hmm. Some of them are kind of blind. Some of them actually sound promising.
Yep.
But if you like to see us do an episode, how about a little help?
Yep. Let us know what you guys think in the comments section. All right, so don't forget to subscribe. Check out all the cool content we have going on the channel. And we'll see you guys next week. Excelsior.
True believers, silver can be better than gold.